I'm joined by retired Air Vice Marshal Sean Bell. Sean, we've been following this closely since the rebellion in Moscow a couple of weeks ago now. What do you make of this latest coming out of the Kremlin, that the Wagner and Moscow are aligned despite what happened?
We've always got to take a massive pinch of salt whenever we hear stuff from, but it's worth as a way of background. As you say, it's been over 2 weeks now since this much vaunted march on Moscow happened, this rebellion. The fallout from that was we fully expected Yevgeny Prigozhin to be offered an exile out in Belarus and also for his fighters, but since that time there's been no evidence that Yevgeny Prigozhin is actually in Belarus. In fact, it's been widely reported he's around Russia, and the camps that apparently were built for the Wagner forces remain empty. So the next chapter in this intriguing story happened this morning. Obviously, the Kremlin were briefing that apparently Putin met Prigozhin and about 35 of his generals. This meeting happened only 5 days after the much vaunted rebellion happened. Apparently, they told Putin, "We're your soldiers and we're here to fight for you." Now, of course, there is an information war going on. Putin is no doubt trying to do a damage limitation exercise here. The one thing as analysts, we thought that Prigozhin's life his life expectancy would have been very short, and previous Soviet leaders, if there was any form of rebellion, would have had a purge of all the senior leadership. They'd have all been wiped out. So it's pretty evident, first of all, Putin doesn't want to make a martyr out of Yevgeny Prigozhin, but also he desperately needs the mercenary forces that he represents, and as a result of that, Putin seems to be holding his friends close, but his enemies closer still.
Yeah, what does that tell us about his position then, not just with regards to the war in Ukraine, but in Russia in general?
From an analyst's perspective, it's generally showing a sign of weakness, and I think the other element of that, General Gerasimov, who has been Chief of the General Staff for 11 years now, but he's not been seen since early June, and it was widely reported this weekend that he'd been replaced. But yesterday, he appeared in a video, Russia state video, and his titles were still announced as being exactly the same, not only Chief of the General Staff, but also Senior Commander in Ukraine. So it's obvious that Putin is still backing him, and again, his position would have been utterly untenable because nobody would have known exactly how he was involved. But it does appear that Putin knew that Prigozhin had a real feud with the Russian MOD. He described them as incompetent, and they were literally corrupt, and that was justifying the march that he was doing, as a result of which Putin seems to be aligning himself with old and loyal colleagues rather than the competence. And I think this is a really sad reflection on his gradual losing grip on power, that actually in the middle of a war he's actually backing loyalty versus incompetence, and that's a major issue for Russia at the moment.